Yes,
I
the
see
recording
it.
is started. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The recording is started. I'll hand over to the chair, Councillor Anna Abella.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Abella. I am the chair of the licensing subcommittee, and I'm also the councillor for Haringey Ward. We're going to start off this meeting by, I think there's someone who's not on mute. Could those colleagues, those individuals who are not on mute, go on mute, please? So I'm going to start off by asking everyone to introduce themselves. Councillor Bartlett, could you kindly introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Nicola Bartlett. I'm the councillor for West Green Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock, could you introduce yourself? You're muted, Sheila.
Unmute. Am I unmuted now? Yep.
Yes.
I'm Councillor Sheila Peacock, councillor for South Tottenham Ward.
Thank you. Could the legal officer introduce himself? You're also on mute, Sadikor.
Hello everyone, I'm Sadiqul Rahman. I'm the legal officer for Haringey Council.
Thank you. Could the licensing officer introduce herself?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Councillor. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dale Barrett, the licensing team leader.
Thank you. And could the clerk introduce himself?
Good evening. I'm Nazia Chowdhury, Principal Committee Coordinator and Clerk to this meeting.
Thank you. We'll now move to the applicant from Traditional Cafe and Tea House. I think we have the applicant Ali Tuskul on the call. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ali Tuskul, owner of the place, applicant for the license. And I'm his son, Salman Tuskul. I'll be operating the premises with my father.
Thank you. And I think you are represented today by Mr. Sutherland. Would you like to would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Councillor. Can I just say that we're in the same room? I think we've addressed the echo issue, but so it's probably me that just hears it. But if it's causing a problem for anybody, then do tell, and we'll try and adjust it further. But we are obviously close together just to deal with any questions or issues that may come up. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can only hear the echo when you are both unmuted. So if you just make sure to mute when you're not speaking so that the other person can speak, there shouldn't be an echo. We also have objectors on the call. Mr. Francini, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Greg Francini. I'm a resident of Hell Wharf.
Thank you. Do we have, let me see, are there any other objectors on the call today? Mr. Tabara?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Mihai Tabara, same local resident in favor.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Claudia, still a resident.
Thank you, Claudia. I have a fourth objector on my list. I'm not sure if he's here, though. Go ahead, Claudia. Did you want to come in? No. So I think it's only these three objectors that we have today. So before we start,
sorry, Chair. I think there is someone by the name of Salim. I'm not sure if it is our objector, but
yes.
one of the names does match.
Yes, Mr. Salim, would you like to introduce yourself? He has messaged to say his audio is not working. Okay, so in that case, I suppose you will be following the proceedings, but you might not be able to intervene. So we'll start off with some housekeeping. First of all, for everyone's awareness, this meeting is being recorded and it will be available for public viewing. Clark, are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Mark Blake. Councillor Sheila Peacock is substituting in his place.
Thank you, Naz, and thank you, Sheila, for stepping in. Are there any matters of urgent business?
No matters of urgent business, Chair.
Thank you. And do any of the members have any declarations of interest? No. Then in that case, I'm just going to summarize the procedure we're going to follow today. The procedure was sent to all the participants by email ahead of this meeting by the clerk for the purposes of any members of the public watching. We will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, the applicant will present their case to the subcommittee. The objectors in the subcommittee will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the objectors will present their representation, and the subcommittee and the applicant will have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then have the opportunity to sum up, and then the meeting will conclude to allow the subcommittee to deliberate and reach a decision. This decision will then be provided in writing within 5 working days of this meeting. If you wish to speak, please raise your virtual hand and direct all communication via the chair. We will take all papers as read, unless there is anything you wish to draw our attention to. All speakers will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated time, unless you request an extension of time, which is at the discretion of the chair. Please do not share addresses of speakers. And in the event that there are several speakers for each party, please avoid repetition and perhaps consider having a spokesperson to address all of your concerns. So we'll turn now to an application for a new premises license at Lock 17. Ms. Barrett, please can you introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, can I just ask first and clarify that the panel has received the list of conditions that Mr. Sutherland, it's not new documentation, but it's a handy documentation because it brings together what was offered in the application and what's been agreed with the police from the police representation, which is now agreed to. Okay, thank you. So the panel has before them an application for a new premises license at Lock 17, Unit 1 Navigation Point at 2 Hale Wharf in 17. The application is submitted by Mr. Ali Tuzgul, and the proposed DPS is Mr. Salman Tuzgul. What is being applied for is the sale of alcohol from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. For the supply of alcohol off the premises. Hours open to the public will be Monday to Sunday, 6 to 11 p.m. And a copy of the application as it sets out is at Appendix 1. It's interesting to know that it does say on there that they do provide food and drink. It would seem for consumption, but obviously haven't been doing anything of that refreshment or doing any alcohol sales, so didn't require any kind of license until this point. During the 28 days consultation period, representations were received from the Met Police, and that is included in the packet Appendix B. The applicants have accepted the police conditions that have been imposed. Representations also from residents can be found at Appendix C, and the residents are here this evening, Chair, and they'll be able to speak to their various concerns. The applicants did attempt to send out a mediation letter via the licensing authority. This was followed through as requested. Residents came back further expressing their concerns and their worries as to why they didn't feel it was appropriate for this application to be granted, and those have also been included in the pack, Chair. In terms of recommendations, the panel is able to grant the application as requested, to grant the application whilst imposing additional conditions and or altering in any way the proposed operating schedule, to exclude any licensable activities to which the application relates, or to reject the whole or part of the application. Regardless of whatever the panel determines to do, once hearing from all parties, full reasons are required to be given. In terms of background, the premises is part of a new build block of flats with retail units on the ground floor. Residents have made representations indicating concerns about the hours for the sale of alcohol being applied for, which they believe would lead to, give rise to the potential to encourage street drinking, the potential for litter and noise arising from this activity. There is also mention of there already being other premises that sell alcohol, so there's no need for further outlet. And just to remind the panel that the demand for premises is not a consideration for this panel. At Section 3 there, Chair, you've got the various parts of the licensing policy, which I know you've read through and understood, and also at Section 4, what we say around licensing hours, where relevant representations are made, and the Council will consider the proposed hours on their individual merits for each application. And that, however, the Council may require stricter conditions in areas that have denser residential accommodation to prevent public nuisance. I've already read out, Chair, the powers of the licensing authority, and just to make clear that the determination is stayed for the 21 days pending any appeal that may be lodged by any of the parties here this evening, Chair. In considering this matter, due consideration should also be taken for Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act and also the Human Rights Act, Chair. Chair, in terms of the operating schedule, I would ask the panel to pay close attention to what has been offered by the applicants, which you will find on page 12 and 13 of the pack, which sets out how they wish to operate their business should this license be granted, Chair. And Chair, there, I'll end it if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Councillor Bartlett, Councillor Peacock, do you have any questions for Ms. Barrett?
No.
No. Okay, we will now hear from the applicant. Mr. Sutherland, please can you introduce your application? You have 5 minutes.
Councillor, thank you. Before I start, you'll see both Mr. Tuskells on your screen. The gentleman on the left is Salman Tuskell, and he is to be the DPS, and the gentleman on the right is Mr. Ali Tuskell. Can I say, and I say this bearing in mind that that I only speak English, and some people criticise me when I speak English, that it's not very good, that Mr. Ali Tuskell's first language is not English, and so if there are questions, it may be that Mr. Salman Tuskell will take over. That's no disrespect to the committee. I think it's just a pure language issue. Can I also say that because of the nature of laptops and cameras, the laptop is very close to me. It may appear to you that when I'm talking that I'm looking away from you. Please don't take that as any disrespect. It's just that I've got papers and other things which I'm looking at very close to me, and so it may look as though I'm talking and being disrespectful, and again, nothing is intended on that front. In respect to this particular application, the premises at the moment are not open. They are in the process of being fitted out. It's hoped that the premises will be opened within the next month, but at the moment they are closed. It is a family business, so I've indicated to you father and son, but it's also it'll be mother and sister as well. So it's a full family business. They live not too far away from the premises, and as I say, they're looking at taking it over and well, opening it very shortly. Now, in relation to the operation, it is a convenience store, and alcohol is just one of the items that will be sold. It's not the main item, but it is obviously a significant part of that business. It's already been mentioned, I think, by the licensing officer that they intend to sell food and drink, and you'll have seen from the plan that there is the intention to do that. But I'm not going to lead on that as part of the application, because at the end of the day, this committee is only concerned with the sale of the alcohol. What I would commend to you is the conditions which are set out. I've brought them all together, which is it was mainly to try and bring them from the application and also the agreement with the police, so it reflects the hours. So this is the additional paper that was circulated earlier today. It was designed to help the committee in this deliberation. You'll see there that the hours for the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises are from 10 o'clock in the morning through to 11 in the evening. And all the conditions which have been agreed are set out. I would commend the application to you on the basis of those conditions. In addition, there's concerns raised about people in the area. One of the factors which is not covered within the conditions, but is a factor of this particular location, is that the landlords or the managing agents of the whole site, that's both the residential side and also the commercial side, provide security, and that's 24/7 security. And the security will patrol the site every couple of hours. And there's a number of points where they need to register in. And one of the register points is actually located at the front of the shop, the proposed shop that these premises are part of. We have been in contact with residents. You may get the feeling that from the residents who've objected that everyone does not like us and does not want us there. And what I would say to the committee is that it's very far from that. The contacts that we've had with a number of residents is very supportive. They want us, they're looking forward to us joining them. We want to be part of the community. We want to serve the community that we are part of. And on that basis, Chair, I'm sure there'll be questions for me, but I would commend the application to you and would ask that really you've got, you can grant the application as requested, or you can add additional conditions. If there are additional conditions, by all means, put them forward and we can consider them. Or to reject the application. You can't exclude from the application any licensable activities, because the only licensable activity that we're asking for is the sale of alcohol. So in essence, you'd be rejecting it. I would ask you to do it on the process that the application is there, the conditions are there, and unless on the evidence that you hear there are grounds, reasonable grounds, that would raise issues about the promotion of the
That is over
licensing
5
objectives.
minutes, Mr. Sutherland.
I do apologise. I will finish off on this, that unless you're satisfied that we're not going to promote the licensing objectives, then you should grant it as put forward. Many thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Councillor Peacock, Councillor Bartlett, do you have any questions for Mr. Sutherland? Councillor Bartlett.
Yeah, a couple of things. So just to clarify, the business isn't currently operating. Is that correct? I thought that something
absolutely correct.
had been recorded in the papers.
The premises are empty at the moment. I don't believe that there's been any occupation of the premises since it's been constructed. I may be wrong on that, but I don't think there has. And we will be the first tenants in the building from a business point of view.
And just on, you touched on the security that you said is covers the site in terms of residential and businesses. How does that relationship work? What, you know, if for example, if there was a problem, someone shoplifting or another disturbance, would the whoever was manning the shop be able to contact the security? What is the kind of offer there from the security that already exists?
Thank you, Councillor. What I would refer you to, you may know the area very well, and forgive me if you do, but on page 17, there's a layout plan of the premises, and in one of the corners, it shows a almost a 3D impression of the premises. The security that's offered is that if you're looking at that 3D image, immediately outside of the premises, almost where the green rectangle is, there are a set of cameras which provide a live feed to the security office, which is situated in another part of the estate, across the bridge, across the navigation canal. So that is one first point of security that is there, that you've got 24/7. There are a number of cameras, but the main one, I think, is located in where I've just highlighted. In addition, you have the patrols of the security officers that go around the whole of the site, and I understand that's done every 2 hours. If there is any criminal activity, I would anticipate that the first point of call would be to the police. So it wouldn't necessarily be to the security on site. It would be that the report would be made to the police, and that would be the appropriate way, I think, of dealing with that, particularly if it's criminal. If there's any disorder, then there is, I understand, direct access from the premises to the security office, which is located, forgive me, I can't give you the precise measurements, but we're talking probably less than 100 meters from the premises, give or take. It's there or thereabouts. It's on part of the site, and they will have security who would be able to attend. That's, I think, how it would operate, how it does operate. I'm just looking across to make sure that Mr. Tusgall agrees. So he's indicating to me it's in the Hale Village, which I think is the estate which is across the canal, across the bridge, and is nearer to the tube station. But it's very close by. Hopefully, Councillor, that covers the question.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Do you have more questions, Councillor Bartlett?
No.
No, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock?
I wasn't going to actually mention this, but as Councillor Bartlett has brought up about it, can I just congratulate you on the diagram? It's very, very clear. And it's not usual to have a map so clear, but I noticed right in the middle you've got the display for alcohol, and I'd like to recommend to you that it's on the side, because it's very difficult for anybody who's behind the counter to see what's happening on the other side of it. So I would recommend to you that you move it to the side. That's it. Thank you.
You are on mute, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Peacock.
Sorry.
Apologies, I had to move to grab a plug because I've just realised that my laptop battery is very low. Mr. Sutherland, did you want to come in on Councillor Peacock's comment?
I think, Councillor, and my apologies, you would have thought that having gone through the pandemic that I would have learned how to use my mute button by now, but it appeared that I managed to mute myself when I was talking. I was thanking Councillor Peacock for the comments. It was something that we'd actually recognised ourselves when we were going through the plans and drawing up finally. So, but I'm grateful for her indication. I can't take any credit for the drawing of the plan. It was the individual who prepared it and prepared the application, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. I have a couple of questions myself. The first is, so I understand this shop is going to sell both food and alcohol. Roughly, what proportion of the products on sale are likely to be food, and what proportion is like food and non-alcoholic drinks, and which proportion is likely to be alcoholic drinks, just very roughly?
I think, Chair, if I may, I'll take it back to page 17. I think the indication As to the layout, and bearing in mind that some things may move, following on from obviously Councillor Peacock's comments, you can see there that the vast majority of the display and items for sale will be non-alcoholic. The spirits, etc., will be behind the counter, as you can see, and then really you're looking at 2 shelving units out of all of the shelves which are there. So it's a small proportion. It will operate as a convenience store. That's the intention. There will be fresh fruit and vegetables, which will be on display, and that's very much part of the offer. It's an important part of the offer. There will be fresh bread, and there will obviously be dairy products as well. I'm singling those out because I know that they've stressed to me how important the whole food aspect of this venture is to them. Alcohol is one of those things which is important for a business like this, because people come in, buy other things, and then may add on something to drink when they get home. It's the way that it is, and therefore it's a useful income stream.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. I just have one more question. So we know that a few residents have objected to your application. My question is, the residents have said that they are concerned about the potential for antisocial behaviour in the vicinity of the shop. If residents were to have complaints about antisocial behaviour that would have potentially some link to this shop, who would they contact within the shop if they were to have a complaint? Will you make the contact details of the DPS available to residents, and will there be a logbook in the shop to log any complaints received?
Thank you. Excellent question. In relation to the in relation to any complaints that are made to the store, yes, there will be an incident book or a complaints book, and a note will be made of any complaints that are made, and any action which is taken should also be recorded. I don't believe, and I was just checking, I don't believe it's actually a condition on the license, but it is something that we have talked about doing, and is certainly, I think, important in ensuring that we remain part of the community, we don't become a problem within the community. In respect of, so that deals with complaint. In relation to contact, some of the residents, I'm anticipating not the ones who are here tonight, but I may be wrong, some of the residents have already joined the guys onto Lock 17 app. I think there's a WhatsApp group, I understand, for some of the residents of Lock 17. We're already part of that. I accept that it may not cover all the residents, but obviously they have a direct access, as it were, to us from that point of view. If it would assist for the contact number, I'm going to suggest that it probably would be best being Mr. Salman Tuzgul, but if it would assist for that number to be provided to the residents, then there would be no difficulty with that. I anticipate the responsible authorities would have it anyway, as he's the DPS. But yes, that can be provided if it helps.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Councillor Bartlett, you had your virtual hand up earlier. Did you want to come in again?
I think this is slightly covered in the conditions agreed, but I just kind of want to make this point about now there's been a change in terms of what the application is in terms of hours, to suddenly change at 10 o'clock and that be the change in terms of when you can sell alcohol. What provisions are in place for staff who are making that call? Because obviously, you know, that may that may be quite a difficult thing to communicate to some people who want to buy alcohol. And I think especially because a lot of the residents' concerns were around the early morning. I know you've got things like Challenge 25, etc., but you know, it's just a point of change there that I think it would be worth addressing.
Yes, thank you. I think that's true. One of the issues that is important for us, and I know that when I've been talking to both of them, it's something that we were looking at putting in place, is to ensure that any staff there are trained and know exactly what to do. So part of the process that they will go through is obviously training in relation to the license and in relation to the conditions, and obviously key to that are the operating hours. There will be signage within the premises near to the displays for the alcohol, which will indicate the times that alcohol can be sold. I think that's important so that customers don't come in and say, there's alcohol, I want it, and you know that can sometimes be a conflict issue. So there'll be that. I think the other point that is important is that the alcohol displays will be covered in respect of when the shop is open but not able to sell, the alcohol will be covered and won't be accessible to customers. So they're obviously the visible signs which will be evident to customers. As part of the process, we'll also have an opening or a during operation, I suppose, checklist, which will kick in to place at around about 9:50, between 9:50 and 10 o'clock, to make sure that at that stage everything is as it should be, and that the blinds and any locks and shutters, they will be removed so that the displays will be open from 10. And so there will be a system in place to make sure that staff are able to be aware of those timings and how important they are. So we'll cover it in a number of different ways, through signage, training, and obviously through physical items too.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Councillor Peacock, did you want to ask a question?
Well, actually, Mr. Sutherland has preempted what I was going to say, because if you had moved it to one side, like Sainsbury's and other stores, they do have a shutter that covers up all the drink, and so it's not available to the public, and it's a clear sign. So thank you very much, Mr. Sutherland, and thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett, for bringing it up.
Thank you. So we'll now move. We'll now give an opportunity to the objectors to ask questions of Mr. Sutherland. Would any of the residents who are objecting to this application like to ask questions? Mr. Zaman, I saw your hand first. If you could introduce yourself, because I think your audio wasn't working at the start of the call, that would also be helpful.
Hi everyone, my name is Salim and I'm here with my wife Amatullah as well, and we're residents in the Lock 17 development.
Our main concern, or our main question, was in regards to the security. So I know Mr. Sutherland kind of stated that we do have security that kind of goes around the whole site. I think I would like to say I almost speak on behalf of kind of all the residents on Hale Wharf when I say we have regular crime within the area, kind of at least monthly, people trying to kind of break into the building, trying to steal packages. And I can kind of hand on heart say our security unfortunately aren't able to help us at all. And they tell us just to directly call the police. So I'd be very surprised if the security would kind of be able to deal with any crime that comes about when the convenience store does open. A few other concerns that I know weren't mentioned was in regards to litter as well. There are no bins in the area.
So at this point, we'd like questions only, but you'll have an opportunity later on to to make statements.
Okay.
So if you could phrase your intervention as a question, please.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my question would be then kind of back to security. Have you kind of spoken to the security within the development to see if they would be able to help you at all? And yeah, how was that conversation?
And I guess I would add to that, like, what is the SLA agreement with the security? So what is your response time? And if they are not able to respond immediately, what is the plan by the shop owners to deal with these incidents going forward?
I think I indicated earlier that in relation to crime, that our contact would be with the police, directly with the police. It wouldn't be with the security. I do think that the security can assist with nuisance and can assist with low-level disorder. I do think that some of the issues that are being experienced are probably because not a lot, but there's a good proportion of the site which is not occupied at the moment, and certainly the businesses are not occupied. And I think that the more that they become occupied and used, I think that the throughput of individuals and presence of people generally will probably discourage some opportunistic thefts in relation to stealing items. I think there was an issue about litter that was raised. There is a refuse agreement that is in place, that needs to be in place as a business operator. That includes both rubbish, which is non-recyclable, and it also includes recyclable items. That is, I understand, in place with the council provider in relation to rubbish. I'm just looking across at Mr. Tusgill just to confirm. It's with the council, I think, isn't it?
No.
Oh, but have you sorted that out? Okay, and who's that with? Okay, I think we're looking at Veolia, but in any event, that needs to be in place before we open and trade. It won't involve using any private residential bins. It will be our own requirement. It's part of the business. We have to have that agreement in place. Otherwise, we fall foul of other rules and regulations with the local authority.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Mr. Tabara, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. So first of all, if I may, just a quick observation that, I second the previous point that been living here for 3 years and security hasn't been very effective. But that's just a minor comment on the previous point. My question is very simple, and I apologize in advance if this is probably well covered in some of the pages of the report, but I do want to state this for the record. Could you please clarify again what type of alcohol are you going to sell? Because I think I've seen different comments on beer and wine, but then fine selection of wine and spirits, and whether all of this alcohol will be pretty much contained together in the same area. Thank you.
It will be all types of alcohol. We're not limiting the type. The display, as we've indicated, I think will be relocated, as Councillor Peacock has suggested. And it will be within one location within the premises. It won't be dotted around the premises. It will be in one location. I'm not sure I can be more specific than that. I'm hoping that deals with your query.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Are there any further questions from the objectors? No. In that case, we will now hear from those who have submitted representations. Would all the residents who were on the call like to speak, or have you chosen someone to be your representative?
I'm speaking for myself.
Greg is speaking for himself. Would anyone else like to speak from those who have submitted representations?
Yeah, I'd like to speak for ourselves as well, please.
Like to
Me
speak?
too, please. Me too.
And Claudia too. Mr. Tabara, would you like to speak?
same, I guess. If there are points that are, if my points were previously covered, I'll keep my hand low. But if not, I'll add my points later. Same, speaking for myself. Thank you.
Excellent. Naz, could I have some guidance from you? Should I, in this case, give 5 minutes to every resident, or should I split the 5 minutes among them?
I think 5 minutes to the three residents speaking. That's fine. The only thing I'd add, perhaps more pressingly, is that the registered speaker in Mr. Uzzaman's case is Mr. Uzzaman, not his wife. I would, yeah, I think it's up to the residents as far as the 5 minutes are concerned. They can have a collective time together, or they can speak separately for 5 minutes. It's up to them really, and what you think is best as chair, based on what they're saying.
In that case, I am happy to give 5 minutes to each resident, but of course, if don't feel obliged to speak for 5 minutes, if you feel you can make your points more concisely, or also if a previous resident has already made the point clearly, there's no need to repeat the same point. In the case, so I understand that we have Mr. Mohammed Salim Uzzaman registered as the speaker. Does that mean his wife, who is not registered, cannot make her verbal representation?
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
Yes. That is unfortunate, but unfortunately we're bound by these rules. Mr. Salim Uzzaman, are you happy to speak?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll let the other residents go first, but if I need to add something, I can add.
Excellent. So in that case, we'll start with Mr. Francini.
Sure. Hi. I'd like to start this by saying my objection is not based on the fact that I don't want Mr. Salman and Ali Tugsil's business. My objection is based solely around the fact of the opening hours, the hours at which alcohol can be sold, and the likely negative impacts off the back of it. The first point would be the prevention of public nuisance. It's been touched upon on this call. The sale of alcohol to 11 PM at night, 7 days a week. There's a potential for increased noise and litter pollution. It's something that, when it comes to noise, that the residents already experience in terms of, it's often the case where large groups of people are outside of the building numerous times. We have to call the police. And I feel that an alcohol license all the way to 11 PM at night, 7 days a week, would likely exacerbate this issue. Additionally, there's a large number of public benches situated close to Unit 1 of Hale Wharf, and the fact that we already face regular disturbances and littering and large gatherings, I feel that the alcohol license late into the night would further exacerbate this point. I don't know if any other residents would want to touch on the noise and litter point, on the basis that Anna said that if you've got a question, you want to talk about it later.
Thank you. Mr. Francini, are you going to conclude there?
No, I can continue. Also, I feel a point that's not been considered around opening hours away from alcohol is the distance between Unit 1 and the surrounding flats, as in my opinion, has been largely ignored. If you are comparing the licenses of Asda, Tesco's, and a lot of the other residential buildings around close to the station, there's at least 5 to 10 meters gap between the commercial lots and the first floor of the residence, whereas on Unit 1, there's less than a couple of meters between the top of the commercial space and the first floor residence. Again, this highlights the point that a shop opening from 6 AM to 11 PM 7 days a week will likely lead to increased noise and litter complaints, not only within the local community, but the immediate surrounding area of the residents in the building.
Thank you, Mr. Francini. Ms. Tamengi, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thanks to everyone for your time. And also, I want to say that I'm very happy about to have a new shop downstairs. The only point I was against was opening at 6 AM and selling alcohol to whom at 6 a.m. want to buy alcohol. And as Mr. Francini already said, we have lots of benches just along the river in front of our entrance. And my point is, I'm very worried about the fact that people can go there, buy alcohol, and just consume it outside, which I believe is not going to be responsibility of the shop owner. So, and plus, I would like to say that the security is not true, it's not 24/7. They barely pass, they don't do anything, they just watch the phones. So we are aware of that because we have so many crimes inside the building as well, with people gathering, entering, and loitering in the hall, which is not really nice, thinking if they can also buy alcohol just a few meters away from our entry hall. Second thing is about the bin room, because we've been told, I'm not sure if that's correct, that the shop will basically put all the litter in the same bin room we are using. So I would like to understand the impact of having like shop litter inside our small bin room, considering the fact that we already have 141 flats. And last is going to be the delivery, because shop will receive deliveries in the morning, I expect. So what about the noise around that? Because if they open at 6, it means delivery will arrive earlier. So because I don't live so upstairs, so I'm worried about feeling noises in the morning, especially. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Francini. Mr. Tabara, would you like to come in?
Yes. So as previous speakers mentioned, I would just say that I'm welcoming a family-owned business. I'm welcoming a grocery store. I'm welcoming a coffee shop. I understand they're a small area, so all of that sounds amazing. As previous colleagues mentioned, the alcohol is the part that concerns me. Most of the points have already been covered, but the part that I wanted the other angle that I wanted to add is I'm a recent parent. I've got an 8-month son, and I'm also concerned about the protection of children from harm as another point that I wanted to bring up. I think to my last count, and please take that with a grain of salt, it's an approximation, but I think 15% of the residents in the building are parents. So just selling alcohol downstairs for now, for the future, is not necessarily an encouraging sign for me as a parent. So I just wanted to point that out. I understand, obviously, from a business perspective, it makes perfect sense, and it's a democratic country. It's just something that I'm concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tabara. Mr. Salim Zaman, would you like to speak?
Yeah, so the first thing I would like to say is that I do echo the concerns that the other residents have raised here. And the things that are most important to me personally would be around security. So as a personal, on a personal experience level, I've experienced people stealing from Tesco, which is nearby, like less than a kilometer away. I've seen the security there that's present 24/7 whenever the shop is open, unable to stop shop basically being lifted, and the police does not come on time over there. So I'm quite surprised that there is no concern around that the shop owners here have not considered hiring their personal security. And as residents, I personally feel unsafe when there are around 10 to 15 people, which as recent as last week, there were around 10, 15 people standing outside the building. It made me as a man feel unsafe. So I can only imagine how people with children or females alone feel. And the second thing I would also like to hear about, as Claudia mentioned, is the bin. So I am under the impression that they would be using the same refuse collection room as us, which makes me concerned as well, because we've seen how full they get on a weekly basis. So I'm quite surprised that that's not been considered. And the third thing that I would like to mention is parking space. So obviously there will be deliveries on a weekly basis or like every few days. And just on another note, I've seen Mr. Tuzgel or his workers come in to the shop to maybe paint and do other things, and they've parked right outside the building. There has been no concern around the residents. We as residents are not allowed to park in front of our building, whereas they've literally parked right next to the shop, which is not allowed. So I would like to see and hear more about what their situation would be in terms of the parking going forwards. Thank you.
Thank you to all the residents who made their representations just now. We'll now take a few questions for the residents. I'd like to ask a question to those residents who mentioned that the sale of alcohol is the point they are most concerned about. My question is, would you feel reassured if the time at which alcohol is being sold were to be restricted, so the time window were to be a bit shorter and it would not coincide with the times when children are going to school, for example? I'm happy to address this to any resident who feels strongly about this point. Mr. Francini?
I feel in the same way that the hours were restricted early in the morning, that a similar restriction in the evening would be beneficial, especially highlighting the concerns around children and litter. You only have to walk around the flats closely located to Asda and Tesco's, that everyone has issues of nuisance and litter. And I feel that selling alcohol up until 11 p.m. 7 days a week would contribute to that. So I would welcome a restriction on both ends of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Francini. Councillor Peacock, Councillor Bartlett, do you have any questions for the residents? No. I think there were 2 points raised by Ms. Tamengi and repeated, I think, by Mr. Tabara, but I think it would be useful to have Mr. Sutherland answer. So one of the questions was, it seems that the residents have been informed that the shop is going to be using the same bin room as the residents use, and there is some concern that, given that the full capacity of this block of flats is quite high, that this bin room is going to get quite cramped. Is this the case, that you're going to be using the same bin room as the residents?
Chair, I believe that's correct. I don't know how often the residents have their bins collected, but the agreement that we are working with is that the shop bins would be for non-recyclable and recyclable would be 3 times a week, so every other day.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. I'm just going to ask Mr. Sutherland one more question, and then I'll come to you, Mr. Francini. So my other question is, I think Ms. Tamengi made a point around deliveries. Do you know what time goods for sale in the shop are going to be delivered to the shop? The reason I ask is that the unloading of those vehicles can sometimes be quite noisy. So is there any chance that this would happen, for example, in the evenings when people are trying to sleep?
Chair, the situation is that if I can refer you to the document that was circulated earlier today, there is on the section which deals with the prevention of public nuisance, condition 6. Sorry, it's not condition 6, I've lost it. It's condition 4, I do apologise. So deliveries will be limited between 0800 hours to 2000 hours. No deliveries will be accepted outside of these hours. That's the condition that will apply. It is possible that there will be some smaller deliveries to do with fresh fruit and vegetables and dairy and bread, where we may need to come back to the committee. But at this stage, the condition which will go on the licence is that there will be no deliveries outside of the hours. So it's only between 8 in the morning and 8 in the evening. Sorry, you haven't asked me, but there was a question about litter, and if you look above that, it talks about keeping the frontage clean and tidy, and then if you look further down, you've got the cleaning of the pavement from the building line to the curb edge immediately outside of the premises. The premises is on a corner, so that would be both the Hale Wharf part, and I'm afraid I don't know the name of the road, but I've probably driven down hundreds of times, but it's the main road which the premises is fronting onto. Forest, is it Forest Road? It's Forest Road further up, but anyway, so they would be the other 2 points, and I suppose actually number 7 on that is also relevant because it picks up with the delivery drivers about allowing engines to run and where they park, etc.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Just a comment for some of the participants on the call. Unfortunately, as committee members, we're not allowed to consider comments made in the chat. So if you'd like to make a comment, it would be better to raise your hand and make it verbally, because it's not on record if you're making it on the chat. Thank you. I just have one more question for Mr. Sutherland, and then I'll come to Mr. Francini, because this I'm realizing now that perhaps I misunderstood the conditions around deliveries. When with condition 7, delivery drivers shall be given clear written instructions to use their vehicles in a responsible manner, etc. Does this only apply to delivery drivers that would come to unload goods for sale in the shop, or does it also apply to, say, if the shop were to decide to start also selling its goods on food delivery platforms? I'm thinking Uber Eats, Delivery Hero, etc. Would those conditions also apply to a delivery driver who's come to collect someone's food order from the convenience store?
Chair, I think the condition is worded widely enough to include that, and certainly should, at the moment, there isn't a plan when they open for that to happen, but it's not being ruled out. So certainly that condition would be wide enough to cover that, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Francini?
My question is around the bins. It's probably something that Mr. DeBarra will touch upon based on the fact that his links in the chat are also based around bins. To Robert Sutherland's point, our bins are only collected once a week, and so that may cause an issue if you're being told they're going to be collected 3 times a week. If that is the case, I'd like, I feel other residents would like confirmation around who is collecting those bins, because currently it's done by Veolia once a week. The residents have also heard that the shop would be being allocated 4 bins. I would like to request confirmation on A, if this is correct, if they're getting 4 bins. B, where are these 4 bins coming from? Is that from the existing pool of bins within the bin room, or are they in addition? Because if they're not in addition, as Claudia said, there's 141 flats in the block. Bins already get filled to the brim weekly, to the point where there's bin bags on the floor sometimes. And I feel that by opening a shop that gets regular deliveries, like we mentioned, there's going to be a large number of recycling, and that needs to be put away and flattened and packed, which I would have serious concerns that if they're taking 4 bins from residents and allocating them to the shop, would lead to a large issue down the line. So if it's possible to get confirmation on who's collecting the bins, if it's done 3 times a week, where the bins are being sourced from residents or additional bins.
Thank you, Mr. Francini. Mr. Sutherland, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you, Chair. I was taking instructions as the question was being asked. I could hear Mr. Francini, so I'm hoping that he doesn't feel that I was being rude. I was trying to take instructions so I could answer the point. In respect of the bins, it's a completely separate agreement, as is the case with all commercial premises. They, unlike residential premises, where often the agreement is with a landlord or a managing agent with a bin provider, the commercial side of it is that they need to have a refuse management agreement and plan put in place with the local authority. It happens that in this case it is with Veolia, but their attendance at the premises is based on the agreement that the shop operator has with Veolia, not based on the agreement that your landlord or managing agent has in respect to the residential side. So it should be separate. In respect of the bins, they will be bins which are provided in line with the agreement that they have with Veolia, so they'll be completely separate from your bins. I understand that the bins will be in the refuse room that is used by everybody. I don't know on what basis that the premises will have been approved, but it is something that will have been considered as part of the planning. Of that, I have no doubt. It will also be something that no doubt building control would also have been involved in to make sure that there was compliance with whatever standards were necessary to get approval for the building to be approved. I'm not privy to it, I'm afraid, so I can't tell you on what basis that is, but I am assured that the bins that we have are based on a completely separate agreement from yourselves and will be additional in the bin storeroom.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Did you want to come in, Mr. Tabara?
No, I lowered my hand. I think Mr. Francini already covered my item. And I do apologize for using the chat. I missed one of the comments, I believe, there earlier. Sorry for that.
No worries. Thank you, Mr. Tabara. Mr. Sutherland, do you have any questions for the residents who submitted representations?
Chair, I don't. It's more comments, not questions. So.
Thank you. So we'll now move to start concluding the meeting. So I'm going to ask the parties to sum up their position. Mr. Sutherland, could you sum up your position?
Chair, yes. So the application is as set out. The hours have been amended by agreement with the police, and I would commend those conditions and those hours as have been put forward. There has been a suggestion for the hours to be reduced, and I would invite the committee to leave the hours as has been agreed with the police. The police, as is set out in the guidance which is provided by government to committees, are your main source of information in relation to crime and disorder. And in relation to that, they have satisfied themselves that the proposals are or can and will promote the licensing objectives in relation to crime and disorder. And on that basis, they have withdrawn. Your environmental health officer has not submitted any representation, and I think that silence is important because, again, if they had concerns in relation to public nuisance, then they would be here. In respect of cleaning, we've talked about cleaning, and the condition already addresses that. We've talked about the litter. The parking is not really a licensing issue, but obviously they will have to park in and the deliveries will have to be from a legal place where they can park and unload their vehicle. As all of us have to comply with road traffic law, they will have to comply as well. I don't think there's anything further I can usefully add other than to say that I would commend the application to the committee and would ask them to grant it as put forward.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Mr. Francini, would you like to sum up your position?
Like I said, I welcome the business of Salman and Ali Tukzil. My only concerns are around the opening hours of the store, the alcohol license, and confirmation around the bin room in regards to the additional bins, how often they be cleared, and a contact point within the business of if for whatever reason we get a bin issue or a nuisance issue, someone to contact or who's easily and readily available.
Thank you, Mr. Francini. Mr. Menge, would you like to sum up your position?
Yeah, the same as Greg said, and I believe that would be very, very useful if we can have some contact numbers of people, even ladies and gentlemen present tonight, to contact in case we will see something that we were pointing out at today's meeting and saying, okay, we spoke about this, we have raised our concern, so this is what's happening. So I believe that having this kind of contact directly with people in here today, it would be really helpful and guarantee us to be like, also protected in a sense, because we are obviously not against the shop itself. Actually, I'm waiting for it. I can't wait to see it open. So yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mengi. Mr. Tabara, would you like to make concluding remarks?
I think most of my comments have already been addressed, so in the interest of time, I'm happy to be skipped. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tabara. And Mr. Salimusaman, would you like to make concluding comments?
Yes, so I guess the first thing I would say is I do welcome the business here, but my biggest concern would be around security, and I guess my recommendation would be to add an obligation on the business to have a full-time security guard present at the premises. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salim Zaman. Mr. Sutherland, I'm not sure I can take further comments at this point because everyone has made their concluding remarks. Is that correct, Naz, or can I take an additional comment from Mr. Sutherland?
You can if there is a matter arising. I don't know if there is a matter arising. You'd have to hear from Mr. Sutherland to find out.
Mr. Sutherland, does your comment relate to something new that the residents have just mentioned?
Correct, madam. It's to address a number of the residents have asked about a number, and I think I was also asked by one of the members about a number that would be available, and a number can be provided through the council if that's preferable. So should the license be granted, obviously that can be provided through yourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. So we'll bring this meeting to a close here. The committee will deliberate on its decision after this meeting, and the decision will be provided within 5 working days of the meeting. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. For the committee members, do stay online so that we can deliberate on our decision. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you, councillors.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.